A Shalom Akim, Shalom, Shalom, giving all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Makakwadash, double honors to the apostles and elders, great millstone, for teaching us his truth and salutations to the sincere Akim and Akwathim. And listen, may the blessing of election be upon your house. My name is Kwai. I'm back in here with another quick and Lord's will is always an edifying lesson. And for today's lesson is just going to be a bit of exhortation. Something I was just meditating on, in regards to thanking the Lord, for, making you, a better man. And, really, just, what's inspired, this lesson, is just, just really just looking at yourself, the way how you are now, and then, doing some comparing and contrast in between how you are now versus how you were, a year, 2 years, 3 years ago, and realizing that, there's a difference. There's improvement. There is, there is, more understanding. You're probably more tempered, right? Because the real objective really is to continue growth, right? Yet, we'll always have some kind of like, bad habits. Paul talks about thorns in the side. We always have some kind of thorn, right? But the objective really is to to continue to strive towards greatness and continue to grow, right? So I kind of just want to do a little bit of I guess it's exhortation, in regards to like thanking the Lord, because how, like only how, you used to be, right? Initially in the beginning, right? And that's, really important to know, in the beginning. And then, you compare yourself, whether it be a year ago or 2 years ago, and you realize you made some, significant, improvements, right? And a lot of these people are very carnal, right? Because they appropriate improvements to be on a physical plane, right, rather than on a spiritual plane, and actually have character, right? And when you look at like just using the so-called manosphere as an example, when you look and you listen to them, they always equate a lot of your improvements to be, something carnal, whether it be, a more brand new vehicle, or it could be, you get a bigger house or a condo or whatever. Those are the kinds of things they strongly appropriate, as, improvements, right? Yes, the Lord can bless you with certain things, but, the scriptures say that the fashion of this world, passeth away, right? And to also, it also says that, when you increase in riches, not to set your heart upon them, right? But I just wanted to, go through a little bit of exhortation, and Lord's will is always, this would be, edifying. It's just something to meditate on, and to, remember, to thank the Lord, for making you, a better man for sure. Keeping that in your prayers, right? Because the Lord is the one that's. As a matter of fact, let me start off with that. Let's see. Let me start off with Psalms. Giving glory to the Lord. This is Psalms chapter 119, verse 9, and it says, "Wherewithal shall a young man cleanse his way? By taking heed thereto according to thy word. With my whole heart I have sought thee. Let me not wander from thy commandments," right? So, this is the way, we are cleansed. This is the way we are sanctified, set apart, washed, and, this is, and Yahushua comes essentially in the volume of the book, right? He is what, help, cleans us, right? So, it's not, and it's a continual process. It's not a process it's a continual process, but it's also a very tedious process too. Very, very tedious, because there's sometimes you might slip, and if you're like myself, sometimes like, for me, I'm extremely hard on myself, right? But the scriptures say that a righteous man falls 7 times and get back up, right? But the point is that cleansing it's a continual process, right? And and just another, and when you continue to, abide in Yahweh Shai, people, especially people in the world, they feel those things. They can feel that. They can feel, they don't may not know what it is, but they can feel that presence, that a very, very priestly, set apart presence, because of the way you conduct yourself, the way you walk. And the scriptures say that a man shall be known by his walk, right? So let me go back to the first precept I had in regards to, comparing, how we were, versus how, we are now, right? And continuously, constantly trying to make, changes, right? Refine ourselves. This is 1 Corinthians chapter 6. I'll start at verse 9 and I'll read down, and it says, "Know ye not that the unrighteous shall not inherit the kingdom of the Most High? Be not deceived, neither fornicators, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor effeminate, nor abusers of themselves with mankind." This is verse 10, and it says, "Nor thieves, nor covetous, nor drunkards, nor revilers." Let me get that word. I'm not sure what that means. Hold on, just bear with me. Let me just look that up. I think that goes back to revelry. Revile. Oh, okay. So revile. In the etymology here, it means to debase, degrade, insult, taunt, vilify. It says consider vile, despise, to disesteem, shameful, dishonorable, lowborn, cheap, ugly, hideous. Okay. So it says revilement, contemptuous or insulting language, right? So it's a way to debase yourself, right? So really the way to degrade and debase yourself is really to just transgress the laws. That's what makes us debased. That's what makes us degenerates, right? Because we're supposed to be a noble vine unto the Lord, Yahweh Bashem Shai, right? The Lord created us to be a noble vine. But, pursuant to Jeremiah, we become a degenerate plant of a strange vine, right? The scriptures also say, how has the gold become dim, right? Because we're supposed to be a strong manifestation of Yahweh Bashem Shai upon, the earth as an Israelite man. We're not supposed to be a complete degenerates and be like the heathens and conduct ourselves as these heathens. We're supposed to look at us and understand that, these guys are the these guys are the people. These guys are the wise people, right? Okay, so I'll read verse 10 again, and it says, "Nor thieves, nor covetous, nor drunkards, nor revilers, nor extortioners shall inherit the kingdom of the Most High." And verse 11, it says, "Such and such were some of you, but ye are washed, but ye are sanctified, but ye are justified in the name of the Lord Yahushai, and by the Spirit of our power." Right. So going back into that cleansing, we know how we used to be. That's really the point. We know we used to be, this type of way. We used to do these kinds of activities. We used to, we know how we used to be, right? That's really the point. And thanking the Lord for washing us, and to continue to, keep His Spirit upon us to be able to constantly, be cleansed. Because if you really think about it, we still have, tendencies and, bad habits about us that we're trying to, constantly examine and repair and so on and so forth, right? So if you really think about it, we're pretty much, like that woman that had a sickness and she's holding on to Yahweh's garment, right? As a matter of fact, I'll probably, read that real quick, because that's the way we're being cleansed. We're holding on to Yahweh, right? She was able to acknowledge that she was sick. That's another important part too, because when you look at the mass majority of our people don't acknowledge that they are sick, and then that's pursuant to Isaiah the first chapter, how there is putrefying sores, and from the head to the foot the whole head is sick, to roughly paraphrase, right? So there has to be acknowledgement to understand that you're sick, because how can a physician heal you if you don't recognize that you're actually sick? Right? So this is Mark chapter 5, verse 25, and it says, "And a certain woman had an issue of blood 12 years, and suffered many things of many physicians, and spent all that she had, and nothing bettered, and it says, but rather grew worse. And when she heard of Yahushua, it came in the press behind, and touched his garment. And it said, for she said, if I may touch but his clothes, I shall be whole." Right? So now she understands, like, oh, I'm not actually whole, but I just want to touch his clothes, right? So it says, and straightway the fountain of her blood issue was dried up, and she felt it in her body when she was healed of that plague. And it says, and Yahushua immediately, knowing that virtue had gone out of him, turned him about in the press and said, "Who touched my clothes?" Yahushua said. And it said, and his disciples said unto him, "Thou seest the multitude thronging thee." So people, kind of pushing him back and forth and so on and so forth. It's kind of like if you think about it, it's like a crowd. "And thou sayest thou, who touched me?" And he looked round about to see her that had done this thing. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what was done in her, came and fell down before him and told him all the truth, right? So, she was in a very humble state of mind, right? And it says, verse 34, "And he said unto her, Daughter, thy faith had made thee whole. Go in peace and be whole of thy plague," right? So I want to get that word whole in the etymology here. So here's the word whole in the etymology. It says unhurt, uninjured, safe. Excuse me. It says healthy, healed, sound, genuine, straightforward, undamaged. It says, excuse me. It says, oh, here it says salvation. Wow. It says welfare. It says complete. Let's see. Hold on. Oh, in a noun under here, the same word, it says entire body or company. The full amount, it says health, remedy, cure. Right? So it essentially it means to be completely sound and healthy, right? Because we understand we're in a situation where we're not completely whole, so we're pretty much in that situation where we're grabbing onto the Lord's garment, via constantly, trying to, seek the Lord, because we understand that we are still sick and we're not trying to be essentially negligent. And this is not sick in the physical sense, although that can happen too. But right, but understanding that we're sick in a sense that we need guidance, we need a savior. That's mostly important thing, right? So that's really the point here. We understand and we can acknowledge that we're sick, because Yahushua even said it himself, they that are whole don't need a physician, but they that are sick, right? So let me just go over here. Go back here. Okay, this is Matthew chapter 5 verse 16, and it says I'll start with verse 14, and it says, "Ye are the light of the world, and a city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle, but put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it giveth light to all that are in the house. Let your light shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven," right? So, constantly, you know, um, I'll put it like this, trying to grab onto Yahushua's garment, being like that woman in the story, it makes it changes your countenance and changes, your presence, constantly, improving and self-developing, and self-development, it doesn't happen overnight, right? It's constant, it's a labor, it requires a lot of it's a tedious labor. It's a lot of self-examination and a lot of alone time, right? But it's very, very, it's an opportunity to also even get close to the Lord too, because you realize like how much, when you look at yourself and you think, man, that's filthy about me, I can change that. You know what I'm saying? So and then you glorify the Lord in heaven, right? You thank the Lord, right? You thank the Lord for my Thawada Yahweh Bashim El Shai for getting me through this, these different situations, whatever they may be, right? So that's pretty much it. It's just giving the Lord his praise, his thanks. As a matter of fact, I'll end off. I had this one written down. I didn't just came back to me. This is Sirach 43 verse 30, and it says, "And when ye glorify the Lord, exalt him as much as ye can, for yet will he far exceed. And when ye exalt him, put forth all thy strength, and be not weary, for ye can never go far enough." All right, so we glorify the Lord. When we boast in the Lord. It's not of our own merit and our own strength and so on and so forth, right? So anyways, I'll leave the lesson there, but Lord's will is always that this lesson was edifying to you, right? Thank the Lord, before you leave the house today, right? So anyways, that'll be it. But all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Until next time, I say Shalom.